Guadalajara, 1987. Santiago Morales is only 5 years old when his life takes a turn no one could have anticipated. It is an ordinary Tuesday in the Analco neighborhood, and the little boy is playing in the dirt courtyard of his home when something unexpected happens. He trips, falls seemingly harmlessly, but his head strikes the edge of a stone well with force. The dull thud sends his mother, Carolina, rushing out of the kitchen. The child remains unconscious for nearly 2 full minutes. When he opens his eyes, something has changed. Doctors at the civil hospital say everything is fine, just a mild concussion. But that same night, Santiago sits up in his bed and speaks words that freeze the blood in his parents' veins. "Mom, I saw Yeshua when he was a child like me. He was in a place with sand and stones. He was building little houses out of clay with his hands, but they weren't ordinary houses. They came to life." Carolina and her husband, Roberto, look at each other in bewilderment. Yeshua is a name the child does not know. They are devout Catholics, but they have never spoken to him about Jesus' Hebrew name. "Where did you hear that name, son?" Roberto asks with a trembling voice. Santiago looks at him with a strange intensity, as if his brown eyes have aged decades in seconds. "I didn't hear it, Dad. I saw him. I was there, and I know why no one tells these stories. Because someone didn't want us to know them." The boy speaks with a clarity impossible for his age. The words flow without hesitation, as if he were reciting something he has always known. Carolina feels a shiver run down her spine. The next day, she visits the parish library and confirms the impossible. Yeshua is indeed Jesus' original name in Aramaic, but Santiago has never had access to such information. He cannot yet read, and at home, there is only a Bible that no one opens. That night, the child speaks again. "Tomorrow, I will tell you what I saw, everything they hid." And he closes his eyes, as if an invisible force compels him to silence. But this was only the beginning of something that would change their lives forever. For 3 days, Santiago does not mention the subject again. Carolina and Roberto begin to think it was just a childish fantasy brought on by the blow. But on Friday evening, as they eat pozole at the kitchen table, the boy drops his spoon and stares at the wall, as if seeing something no one else can perceive. His lips begin to move silently. Suddenly, he speaks in a clear and firm voice. Yeshua was 6 years old when he made a clay bird fly. His teacher, Helen, saw it and was very afraid. He told him never to do it again in front of other children. Roberto stops chewing. Carolina feels the air grow heavy. "Helen, who is Helen, son?" Santiago blinks, as if waking from a dream. He was his teacher in Nazareth, an old man with a white beard and a brown tunic. He taught him the sacred scriptures in a small room with a stone floor. The level of detail is astonishing for a 5-year-old child. Roberto decides to call Father Ignacio, the priest of their parish. They need answers. They need to know if this is something spiritual or medical. Father Ignacio arrives 2 days later. He is a 60-year-old man with a serious face and a calm voice. He sits across from Santiago in the living room while Carolina prepares coffee. "My son, tell me what you saw," the priest says in a gentle but firm tone. Santiago looks him directly in the eyes. "I saw things you don't know, Father, things that are in books no one reads. Yeshua performed miracles as a child, but he was punished for it. That's why they told him it was dangerous." Father Ignacio feels a knot in his stomach. This narrative aligns with apocryphal texts he studied in seminary decades ago, texts the church has never recognized as official. "Where did you learn this?" the priest asks, his voice growing tenser. Santiago tilts his head. "Because I was there, Father. I don't know how, but I was there. And I saw why they erased those stories. Because they showed something people weren't supposed to know." The priest closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. This is not normal. It cannot be mere imagination. "I need to speak with the bishop," he murmurs, standing up. Carolina grabs his arm. "Father, what's happening to my son?" Father Ignacio looks at her with genuine concern. "I don't know, ma'am, but this is beyond my understanding." And in that moment, they all realize something extraordinary is happening, something that is only beginning to reveal itself. 10 days later, Bishop Ramon Castellanos arrives at the modest Morales home. He is a 72-year-old man, an expert in ancient texts and a doctor of theology from the Gregorian University in Rome. He is accompanied by Father Ignacio and a woman named Dr. Silvia Mendoza, a child psychologist specializing in unusual cases. They want to rule out any psychological disorder before considering anything supernatural. Santiago sits on the couch, playing with wooden toy cars made by his grandfather. The bishop sits across from him with a notebook in hand. Santiago, I want you to tell me everything you remember from your visions. With details, please. The child sets the cars aside and takes a deep breath. I saw Yeshua in a stone house. He was 5 years old, like me now. He was playing with other children near a well. One of the children pushed him, and he fell into the water. Everyone thought he would drown, but he walked on the water to the shore. The other children ran away screaming. The bishop writes quickly. This account is found in the Gospel of Thomas, an apocryphal text from the 2nd century, but it is a document known to very few outside specific academic circles. And what else did you see? Dr. Mendoza asks in a neutral tone. Santiago closes his eyes. I saw that when Yeshua was 7 years old, his father Joseph asked him to help in the carpentry workshop. They had to build a table for a rich man, but Joseph cut one of the beams wrong, and it was too short. Yeshua put his hands on the wood and stretched it until it was the right size. Joseph told him never to tell anyone about it. The bishop feels a chill. This incident, too, is found in ancient apocryphal texts, particularly the Arabic Gospel of the Infancy. These are documents the Church considers non-canonical, but which exist in specialized libraries. The bishop leans forward. Santiago, can you read? The child shakes his head. Have you been to a library or seen old books? Another shake of the head. Carolina interjects from the kitchen. Bishop, my son can barely write his name. We don't have books at home, except for a Bible that's stored away. There's no way he could know these stories. The bishop slowly closes his notebook. He looks at Father Ignacio, then at Dr. Mendoza. We must document this, every word, every detail, because if what this child says is true, we are facing something that hasn't happened in centuries. And then he asks the question that will change everything. Santiago, do you know why these books aren't in the Bible? Do you know who removed them and why? The child nods slowly. Yes. And when I'm ready, I'll tell you the whole truth. Bishop Castellanos decides to conduct a test. If Santiago truly possesses knowledge of ancient texts without having read them, he must be able to describe things not found in any ordinary Bible. He returns 3 days later with a worn leather briefcase. Inside are copies of manuscripts that exist only in Latin and ancient Greek, documents he has studied for decades. He sits across from the boy again and opens a folder. Santiago, I'm going to show you a picture. I want you to tell me if you recognize this place. It is a photograph of the ruins of Nazareth, taken in 1952 by Israeli archaeologists, showing the remains of stone houses, an ancient communal well, and the foundations of what might be a synagogue. Santiago looks at the picture for 30 seconds in silence. Then he points to a specific spot in the right corner of the photo. There, that's where Yeshua's house was. But something is missing in this picture. The bishop frowns. What's missing? Santiago touches the photo with his little finger. There was a big tree here, a very old olive tree. Yeshua climbed that tree to watch the sunset. And under that tree, something important is buried. The bishop feels his heart race. He checks his notes. No canonical or apocryphal text mentions a specific olive tree at Jesus' house. This is new information. What is buried there, Santiago? The child closes his eyes, as if seeing the scene in his mind. A small wooden box. Inside are drawings Yeshua made when he was 8 years old. Drawings of birds, his family, miracles he did in secret. His mother, Miriam, kept them because she knew someone would have to find them one day. Dr. Mendoza, who has been silently taking notes, intervenes. Bishop, this is impossible. A child cannot invent such details. Father Ignacio nods. Unless he really saw it. The bishop puts the photo away and looks at Santiago. My son, if what you say is true, we need to go to that place. We need to dig and see if we find anything. Santiago opens his eyes and smiles for the first time. You won't have to go there, Bishop, because what matters is much closer than you think. The silence in the room is absolute. Carolina feels her legs tremble. What do you mean, son? Santiago stands and walks to the window. He points to the horizon, where the distant silhouette of the mountains is visible. There's a place in Jalisco, a small village hardly anyone knows. A monk arrived there many years ago, bringing something from the Holy Land, something he hid before he died. And that something holds the answers you're looking for. Bishop Castellanos feels a chill run down his spine. What is the name of that village? Santiago looks at him with eyes that seem to hold centuries of knowledge. San Miguel de las Piedras, and you need to hurry because time is running out. 2 weeks later, a small convoy sets out from Guadalajara to San Miguel de las Piedras. Bishop Castellanos, Father Ignacio, Dr. Mendoza, Carolina, and Santiago are part of the journey. Roberto had to stay behind for work, but blessed the trip with a worried face. The village is 130 kilometers south, hidden among arid hills and dirt roads. It is a place that doesn't appear on most maps. Only 400 souls live there, dedicated to subsistence farming and goat herding. The journey is long and dusty. Santiago sits in the back seat, staring out the window without a word. Suddenly, 20 kilometers from their destination, the child speaks. When we arrive, look for the old church, the one they don't use anymore. Behind the altar, there's a loose stone. Under that stone, you'll find a passage. The bishop glances in the rearview mirror. A passage to what? Santiago closes his eyes. To the truth. They reach the village at noon. The sun burns fiercely on the empty streets. An old man sweeping the entrance to his house watches them curiously. Father Ignacio approaches and asks about the old church. The man points to an adobe building that seems on the verge of collapse, perched on a small hill. There it is, Father, but no one's gone inside for 30 years. They say it's. The priest thanks him, and the group climbs the hill under the scorching heat. The church is smaller than they expected. The wooden doors are swollen from moisture and hard to open. Inside, the air smells of damp earth and abandonment. There are broken pews, images of saints with peeling paint, and a dusty stone altar. Santiago walks straight to the altar, as if he knows the place. He kneels and points to a specific stone in the floor. Here, move it. The bishop and Father Ignacio exchange glances, use a metal crowbar they brought in the car, and push the stone. It gives way with a dull grinding sound. Beneath it is a dark hole. The bishop turns on a flashlight and shines it downward. It's a small tunnel descending about 3 meters. There are steps carved into the rock. My God, whispers Dr. Mendoza. Santiago leans forward and says calmly, I'll go down first. Follow me. And without waiting for a response, he begins to descend. Carolina tries to stop him, but the bishop holds her arm. Let him, he knows what he's doing. One by one, they descend into the darkness toward a secret that has waited centuries to be revealed. The steps end in an underground chamber about 4 by 4 meters. The walls are made of volcanic rock and covered with strange symbols. The bishop shines the flashlight and immediately recognizes ancient Aramaic writing mixed with Latin. This is impossible, he murmurs. These symbols are from the 1st century. How did they get here to Mexico? Santiago walks to the center of the chamber, where a stone table stands. On it rests a wooden chest, worn by time, about 40 centimeters long. The child places his hands on the chest, but does not open it. In this chest is the reason why the Gospels of Yeshua's childhood were erased. Inside is the proof that he was fully human before he was fully divine. And that truth frightened many powerful men. Bishop Castellanos feels his knees weaken. He approaches slowly and with trembling hands, opens the chest. Inside are 3 objects, a rolled manuscript protected in a copper cylinder, a small clay figurine in the shape of a dove, and a piece of cloth with dark stains that look like blood. Father Ignacio takes the manuscript reverently, unrolling it with utmost care. It is written in Aramaic, but he can read some fragments. His eyes widen as he reads. Bishop, this is a testimony. It is signed by Mary Magdalene. Dr. Mendoza gasps. What does it say, Father Ignacio? He swallows hard. It says that when Jesus was 9 years old, a boy from the village drowned in a river. Jesus placed his hands on the body, and the boy came back to life. But the Pharisees accused Jesus of sorcery. Joseph and Mary had to flee Nazareth for 3 months. Santiago nods. That's why they hid these stories, because they showed that Yeshua used his power before he began his official mission. And that contradicted the idea that he was just an ordinary man until he was 30. The church didn't want people to know that he was always special, that his miracles began in childhood. The bishop sits on the chamber floor, overwhelmed. But why is this here? Who brought it? Santiago points to an inscription on the wall. A Franciscan monk named Fray Bartolomé de Oviedo. He arrived in Mexico in 1542. He brought these objects, which he found in the catacombs of Rome. He knew they would be destroyed in Europe, so he hid them here. He built this chamber with the help of indigenous Nahuas who believed they were protecting something sacred. The bishop reads the inscription in the flashlight's beam. Indeed, a name is carved into the stone, Bartolomé de Oviedo, year of our Lord 1534. Dr. Mendoza has tears in her eyes. This changes everything we know. Santiago picks up the clay figurine shaped like a dove. This is the first dove Yeshua made fly when he was 6 years old. His teacher Hillen kept it because he knew it was a miracle. And one day, when the world is ready, everyone will know the full truth. The silence in the chamber is profound, a silence that holds 2,000 years of secrets, and they are only beginning to unravel them. For 3 days, Bishop Castellanos works with a team of experts in ancient languages to fully translate the manuscript. They bring it to the University of Guadalajara, where an emeritus professor of biblical studies named Dr. Ernesto Valdez confirms the unthinkable. The document is authentic. Carbon-14 tests date the papyrus to between 60 and 80 AD. It is written in Galilean Aramaic, the exact dialect spoken in Jesus' time, and the signature at the end, though faded, is identifiable: Miriam of Magdala, Mary Magdalene. Dr. Valdez reads the full translation aloud to the bishop, Father Ignacio, Dr. Mendoza, and Santiago, who listens silently from a high chair. I, Miriam of Magdala, bear witness to what I saw with my own eyes. When Yeshua was a child, the Lord was already working through him. I saw him heal a dying lamb with a single touch. I saw him multiply bread when his family was hungry. I saw him calm storms with his words. But I also saw the temple elders fear him. They said a child with such power was dangerous, that it could disrupt the established order. Dr. Valdez pauses and looks at the bishop. There's more. She describes a specific event not found in any canonical gospel. He continues reading. When Yeshua was 11 years old, a group of Roman soldiers came to Nazareth searching for rebels. They brutally beat an innocent old man. Yeshua stepped in and touched the man. The wounds disappeared instantly. The Roman centurion was so terrified that he fled the village and never returned. But this incident reached the ears of the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. From then on, they watched Yeshua closely. Santiago steps down from his chair and approaches the manuscript. This is the main reason they hid these texts, because they showed that Yeshua defied authority as a child, not just religious but also political. If this knowledge had spread, it would have inspired revolutions. It would have shown that divine power is accessible even to the youngest, the humblest, and that frightened those who controlled power. Bishop Castellanos closes his eyes. So the early church decided to hide this part of the story. Dr. Valdez nods. Not just the church. At the Council of Nicaea in 325, Emperor Constantine and the bishops decided which texts would be deemed sacred and which would be discarded. The infancy Gospels showed a Jesus too human, too imperfect in his learning, too powerful at a young age, that didn't fit the narrative they wanted to build. Santiago interrupts. And they burned hundreds of manuscripts, but some survived, like this one. Dr. Mendoza, who has been silent until now, finally speaks. Santiago, how do you know all this? Who is showing you this? The child looks at her with eyes that seem to hold centuries. It's not a person, doctor, it's a memory. A memory that's everywhere in time itself, and for some reason, I can access it. The bishop crosses himself. My God, this child is a mystic, a seer. Santiago shakes his head. I'm not special, Bishop. I'm just the messenger, and the most important part is yet to come. Everyone looks at him expectantly. What's still missing? Father Ignacio asks. Santiago takes a deep breath. We need to show where the other manuscripts are, because this is only one of 7. Santiago's revelation shakes the group to its core. If there are 6 other hidden manuscripts, it means there is a network of knowledge protected for nearly 2,000 years. Bishop Castellanos calls an urgent meeting with senior church authorities. 3 weeks later, Cardinal Esteban Rojas arrives in Guadalajara, sent directly from the Vatican. He is a 68-year-old man, an expert in the secret archives of the Holy See. He brings a suitcase with classified documents that have never seen the light of day. They meet in a private room at the archdiocese. Santiago is present with his parents, the bishop, Father Ignacio, and Dr. Mendoza. Cardinal Rojas looks at the child with a mix of fascination and caution. Santiago, I've read the reports about your visions and seen the manuscript you found. The Vatican has known about the existence of hidden texts for centuries, but we never knew exactly where they were. Can you tell us where the other 6 are? Santiago nods. They are scattered around the world. One is in Ethiopia, buried under a Coptic church in Lalibela. Another is in Turkey, in the caves of Cappadocia, sealed in a bronze urn. The third is in Spain, in the Montserrat Monastery, hidden behind the image of the Black Madonna. The fourth is in Egypt, in the St. Catherine's Monastery at Sinai. The fifth is in India, in a secret library in Kerala. The sixth is in France, in the catacombs beneath the Basilica of St. Denis. The cardinal writes quickly. Each location the child mentions corresponds to historical sites for storing ancient texts. And the seventh? The cardinal asks, his voice tense. Santiago pauses. The seventh never left the Holy Land. It's in Jerusalem, under the Wailing Wall, in a chamber sealed in 70 AD, just before the Romans destroyed the temple. The silence is absolute. Father Ignacio gasps. That would mean it's been untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Santiago nods. It's the most important of all, because it contains Yeshua's direct words, a diary he wrote himself at 12 years old, after his visit to the temple. Cardinal Rojas stands, visibly moved. Santiago, are you saying there's a text written by Jesus Christ himself? The child looks at him without blinking. Yes. And in that text, he explains his mission, why he came, what must happen for humanity to awaken, and why his childhood was hidden. Carolina takes her son's hand. And what does it say, my love? What does he explain? Santiago takes a deep breath. It says that the miracles of his childhood were preparation, that God was teaching him to use divine power for his adulthood. But it also says that every human has that same potential, that we can all do what he did if we learn to connect with the divine from childhood. Cardinal Rojas sinks back into his chair. This is revolutionary. It would change the entire structure of faith as we know it. Santiago nods. That's why they hid it. Because if people knew we could all be like Yeshua, we wouldn't need intermediaries, no institutions telling us how to connect with God. And that was unacceptable to those who built religious power. Bishop Castellanos crosses himself. Lord, have mercy on us. The cardinal fixes his gaze on Santiago. We must recover these manuscripts, all of them, and we must do it before this information falls into the wrong hands. Santiago smiles faintly. It's already begun, Cardinal. The world is ready, and nothing will stop it. 6 months later, an international team gathers in Jerusalem. The Vatican, in collaboration with the Israel Antiquities Authority and scholars from 5 universities, begins the most delicate and secretive excavation in the last 50 years. The site is highly sensitive, both religiously and politically. They work at night under strict security measures. Santiago travels with his parents, Bishop Castellanos, and Cardinal Rojas. It is the child's first time leaving Mexico. When Santiago reaches the Wailing Wall, he stops abruptly, closes his eyes, and tears roll down his cheeks. This is where it all began. Carolina embraces him. What do you feel, son? The child responds with a trembling voice. I feel Yeshua. He was 12 years old when he was here. He felt overwhelmed by God's presence. That's when he understood who he really was. The archaeologists have located a sealed entrance 3 meters below the current level using ground-penetrating radar. The exact coordinates Santiago provided months earlier are accurate to the centimeter. The excavations take 3 weeks. Finally, they open a narrow passage leading to a small chamber. The walls are covered with inscriptions in ancient Hebrew, and in the center on a stone pedestal rests a clay jar sealed with hardened beeswax. Dr. Isaac Levy, the lead archaeologist of the project, takes it with trembling hands. This is real, my God, this is real. They take it to a specialized laboratory, where it is opened using state-of-the-art preservation techniques. Inside is a parchment scroll in perfect condition. It is written in Aramaic in a clear, youthful script. Dr. Levy, an expert in paleography, begins to translate aloud in front of cameras documenting every second of the discovery. I, Yeshua ben Joseph, write this in my 12th year. I have seen visions of the future, I have seen what I must do, but I have also seen the fear in the elders' eyes. They do not understand that the power I have is not to rule but to liberate. I write this so that one day when the time is right, the truth will be known. The silence in the room is deafening. Santiago approaches the parchment and touches it gently. Here is everything. The full explanation. Dr. Levy continues reading. My mother told me that since my birth, strange things happened. Animals followed me. Plants grew faster where I played. When I was 5 years old, I healed an injured dog without knowing how. My father, Joseph, told me it was the Lord working through me, but the rabbis said it was the work of evil. I had to learn to hide what I could do. Cardinal Rojas has tears in his eyes. This is the voice of Christ, his true voice as a child. Dr. Levy nods and continues. Now I understand that I came to show a way, not to be worshipped but to be followed. Everything I do, you can do too, for the Father is in me as he is in all. But I know some will use my name to create divisions. They will build temples, rules, punishments. They will forget that the message is simple: love, serve, and awaken the divine power within you. Santiago speaks. This is the part they hid. Because if everyone awakened that power, no one would need to be controlled. Bishop Castellanos kneels and weeps. Forgive us, Lord. Forgive us for hiding your truth for 2,000 years. Cardinal Rojas places a hand on the bishop's shoulder. We are not here to ask for forgiveness. We are here to correct the mistake. This manuscript must be shared with the world. And in that moment, everyone understands that something monumental is about to happen. The truth, hidden for millennia, is on the verge of coming to light. 3 months later, the Vatican issues a historic statement. The Pope calls a global press conference to announce the discovery of the 7 manuscripts of Christ's childhood. The news shakes the planet. Millions watch the live broadcast from Rome. The Pope, with a firm but emotional voice, declares, for centuries, the Church has kept secrets out of fear of losing control, fear that the truth would be misinterpreted. But the time for fear is over. Christ came to liberate us, not to subjugate us. And today, humanity deserves to know his full story. The manuscripts are digitized and made publicly available on an international portal. Scholars, theologians, and ordinary people worldwide can read them. Reactions vary. Some celebrate the transparency as a spiritual rebirth. Others question the authenticity of the texts. But the scientific evidence is irrefutable. The manuscripts are authentic, and their content aligns with the historical and linguistic context of the 1st century. The world's most prestigious universities confirm their validity. Santiago Morales, now 6 years old, becomes an unwilling symbol of this awakening. Media worldwide want to interview him, but his parents, guided by Bishop Castellanos, protect his privacy. They allow only one interview, broadcast globally from Guadalajara. A Mexican journalist named Armando Gutierrez asks him respectfully, Santiago, what do you want people to understand from all this? The child looks directly into the camera with those deep eyes that have seen beyond time. I want people to understand that Yeshua didn't come to be different from us. He came to show us what we can become. We all carry the same light inside. We can all perform miracles if we learn to connect with divine love. We don't need intermediaries or grand temples. We just need to awaken. His words resonate in millions of hearts. Social media explodes with debates, reflections, and testimonies. People of all faiths share experiences of spiritual transformation. Something shifts in humanity's collective consciousness. 6 months after the papal announcement, the other 6 manuscripts are successfully recovered from their locations in Ethiopia, Turkey, Spain, Egypt, India, and France. Each adds pieces to the puzzle. Together, they form a complete narrative of Jesus' childhood and youth. They reveal a deeply human child who struggled with his power, made mistakes, learned to control his abilities, but they also show a clear purpose: to demonstrate that the divine and human are not separate, that every person can be a channel for the sacred. The Catholic Church faces an internal transformation. Many conservative leaders resist the changes, but a new generation of theologians embraces the revelation. Ecumenical communities emerge, transcending traditional religious divides. The focus shifts from passive worship to active practice of love and service. Churches become community centers where meditation, spiritual healing, and consciousness development are taught. Cardinal Rojas leads a historic reform within the Vatican, establishing a global council that includes representatives of all spiritual traditions. Santiago returns to his daily life in Guadalajara. He starts elementary school, plays with friends, but something in him has changed permanently. He no longer has visions as before, but he retains a serenity and wisdom that astonish those who know him. One day, while playing in the schoolyard, a classmate falls and severely injures his knee. Santiago approaches, places his hand on the wound, and closes his eyes. When he removes his hand, the wound is gone. The children scream in amazement. Santiago just smiles. We can all do this. We just need to remember who we really are. 10 years later, in 1997, Santiago is 15 years old. He is a normal teenager attending high school, playing soccer, and listening to rock music. But at night, he writes in a diary everything he experienced in that extraordinary year of 1987. He knows those memories will be important one day. The world has changed. Religions are no longer structures of control, but networks of spiritual support. People seek direct experiences of the divine rather than rigid dogmas. And it all began with a 5-year-old boy who hit his head and remembered a truth hidden for 2,000 years. The final entry in Yeshua's original manuscript said something Santiago has never shared publicly until now. There will come a time when a child will remember these words, and that child will open the doors for all to remember. For the kingdom of God is not a distant place. It is here now, in every heart that chooses to awaken. Santiago closes his diary and looks out the window at the starry sky of Guadalajara. He smiles, knowing he has fulfilled his mission. Jesus' childhood is no longer a mystery, it is an invitation. An invitation for every human to discover their own divinity. And that invitation is only beginning to be embraced by a humanity finally ready to awaken.